Okay, now something completely different. Macro level, linked to the Hugo's morning talk and yesterday discussion, maybe potentially. I want to talk about our more and more present intention to capture data on 24-hour movement behavior, or how we call it in the old terms, it's whole day physical activity profile. And in our studies in Austria, in collaboration with Italy and Slovakia, we are systematically adding this part of data and want to see and correlate things on different levels with this profile. Physical activity is important for preserving physical abilities among older adults who were the focus of our Center of Active Aging Interact project, the latest one between Slovakia and Austria, actually the pre-latest now finished and the new one running Cambremop. We know that the physical activity on a daily basis has favorable impact as well as sport participation. On the other hand, less is known about the effect of daily movement profile on physical abilities. So the daily profile is consisting of these elements if we categorize them based on different methodologies that are used, from questionnaires to accelerometry, which is the most used quantitative objective data, and up to physiological measurements using heart rate monitors or even oxygen consumption and some biological trackers. Data on time spent in physical activity, sedentary behavior, and sleep are specific. And after I learned about this 2 years ago, I'm always thinking whether it applies also to some of the biological samples data or anything similar, because it came to my surprise that the standard statistical approach does not work when we have data that sums up to a definite final number. And until 3 to 5 years ago, all the data on epidemiology of movement behaviors, how the broader field is called, have been treated with standard statistics. But these data are mutually exclusive, so engage in only one behavior at a time. Then there is no time in the day when a person cannot be assigned to any of the activity at a certain time point. So meaning that their data is exhaustive. They are codependent. They always sum up to 24 hours. So there is no categorization that would not fit into it. And once we want to analyze the data that are having this kind of characteristics, summing up to 100%, let's say, then we need to treat them in a non-standard way. This treatment is based on the definition of compositional nature of the data and should be studied in combination. So here we have the whole day with certain elements, and this was first introduced in 2014 by Professor Pedisic, who is originally from Croatia, but now a full professor for last 15 years in Australia, but adopted only seriously around 2018 with the first additional articles, and now it's a boom on the field. Actually, no paper will get accepted if it's not treated as a compositional data. So the importance of acknowledging compositional data and compositional data analysis as a specific branch in statistics, the only meaningful information is in relative distribution of time between different behaviors and not their absolute values. So remember the name compositional data analysis in case you are dealing with, I don't know, surfaces in your cross-sectional areas that sum up to 100 or something, the volume of blood that sums up to. And it's not good enough that you just normalize it to your baseline measurements, but it seems it would be in all these cases appropriate to treat them with a compositional data analysis. So our aim of this cross-sectional observational study based on a convenience sample recruited in St. Pölten, so the part of the Center of Active Aging project on the Austrian side, was to explore the association between 24-hour movement behaviors and physical performance among older adults. Here is the set of measurements. Yesterday evening, our group had a discussion about how to take most out of it, and it turned out today during Stefan's discussion once more that we failed in having that opportunity, because all the biopsies were taken on the Slovakia side, and the physical ability and 24-hour movement behavior data that were very well captured on the Austrian side, we don't have from Slovakia side. So combining the biological sampling materials with the story I'm going to present here is very limited or absent. But on the other hand, there is a good thing. Sandra, you will see that we have a hand grip and some other data, which I think can help us in the context of sarcopenia and other things. So the test battery at the baseline, post-intervention of 10 weeks of supervised exercise, as well as the follow-up after a longer period of 3 months. That's all what we captured on the Austrian side on these older adults. However, in this presentation, I'm just focusing on the red ones and only for the entry time point for all subjects. At baseline assessment, Hugo, we do have active PAL sensors that are golden standard on the field. And we have in Slovenia around 40 of them, and in Austria I think around 10. So we have good conditions for any, let's say, new measurements. So accelerometry, active PAL tells us it's been validated several times, and there is a standard of optimal wear time of 7 days, 24-hour a day. You can take a shower or even swim with them, nothing will happen. And then the data is categorized on sleep time, sedentary behavior, light physical activity, the one, Hugo, you were touching on, and moderate to vigorous physical activity category. On the physical performance, we had several tests that we said they are strength tests, and here we have a hand grip, as well as some clinical tests and isometric maximal knee extension strength, 30-second chair risings, 5 times chair rising test, flexibility, mobility-related tests, up and go, 10-meter preferred and maximal speed walking, balance-related tests, as well as 2-minute step test as a representer of endurance ability. So it's a sample of 103 subjects treated in this analysis, average age of 68, and some other profile data of the clinical questionnaires of quality of life as well as SF. Data curation, we treated the data in Cree algorithm informed by sleep diary data, and valid day was more than 20 hours captured by ActivePal, and valid record, so the subject was taken into the compositional data analysis in case of having 4 or more days in a row minimum, optimally 7 days, but we took those with 5 and 6 days as well. In the package R software, we analyzed the data, and the code was written for the compositional data analysis, and a method of estimating predicted change in the observed outcome that is associated with reallocation of a specific amount of time, in our case 20 minutes, which is the most often used amount of time reallocated, spent in one movement behavior to another. Okay? So if we have big enough sample, it allows us to study how the outcome measure, so the physical ability selected variable, would change in case that we are reallocating 20 minutes, let's say from sleep to moderate to vigorous physical activity, or any other combination. Okay. This is a reference day. If we reallocate 20 minutes, this of MVPA, this will happen to the new composition of the day. These are the results of our sample. Our average composition was like that, and all the data on the results graphs will be presented in changing this by 20-minute reallocations of each of the component to another selected component. So remember, and you will get notified on the bottom of the further slides. And these are physical performance tests and our descriptive statistics on them. Now, this is what we get out of this analysis. So on the verticals, we have increase of sleep time, decrease of MVPA. So plus means we are increasing that component in a 24-hour movement behavior profile for 20 minutes, and we are decreasing the one with minus, so the second one. What we can see is that reallocating, increasing sleep, decreasing MVPA in our sample of 103 subjects will significantly decrease knee extension strength. Light physical activity increased and decreased MVPA, the same thing. Sedentary behavior increased, which is pretty similar to sleep reallocated to on the cost of MVPA. We get, again, very similar change. On the other hand, we have here some positive effects that are still significant, but why these confidence intervals are so large? Because if you remember the profile of our average older adult, we are actually, if we are decreasing moderate to vigorous physical activity, we are approaching 0 minutes per day. This is why then the variability measures increase so much. So in these cases, these are significant changes and much more significant than this actually, because of the confidence intervals that are much, much smaller if we are reallocating in the other direction. So if we increase MVPA and decrease sleep, we see that the knee extension strength changes. We have pretty much the same profile for the other two strength measures, so the 30-second chair standing and 5 times stand. Don't get confused by the direction, because some of the units here are Newton meters per kilogram of body mass, and here is number of repetitions, so the same direction. The higher the number, the better the result, and vice versa. And in case of 5 times chair rise test, we have time. So if someone performs it in a longer time, meaning lower strength. Hand grip, arm curl, the same thing, but not significant because of the lower sensitivity of the test, and also the upper extremities probably not reflecting the general physical activity in the profile being represented, which is expected in relation to the lower body. Mobility, no effect, no significance to the profile, no predictive value of such reallocations. But the biggest effects are on strength as well as mobility tests. So preferred speed as well as maximal speed on 10 meters and time up and go, they all behave in a way that I presented in strength tests, except from the nature of plus minus, but otherwise the highest significance was present in these mobility tests. Not so much, but still some of them confirming the same effect on the body balance outcome measures. And here we have the 2-minute step test. Again, the same reallocations as the knee extension strength happen with pretty high significance. So if you look at that, we see that we have negative effect on average, which is minus 50 to 60 steps in the test, which from clinical values we know it's pretty huge. It's not small effect. So for conclusion, we can summarize that 24-hour movement behaviors are associated with physical performance among older adults when treated by currently considered golden standard approach, which is compositional data analysis with reallocations and their effects. Significantly associated found for 9 out of 13 physical performance outcome measures or scores, reallocating time from moderate to vigorous physical activity to sleep sedentary behavior or low-level physical activity showed unfavorable impact of largest effect size, and effect size of reallocating time to MVPA was relatively smaller, indicating that most benefits of MVPA are already seen when engaging in only 20 minutes per day on average during the week, which is quite equal to MVPA, World Health Organization, and current directions related to health, which is more than 150 minutes per week. And it fits pretty nicely together with that data. Reallocating time from low-level physical activity, Hugo, from sleep showed favorable impact on lower body strength and balance. So it is confirmed, at least on our data, that low-level physical activity matters as well when you transfer from sedentary behavior or sleep to light physical activity. Reallocating time from light physical activity from sedentary behavior, not so obvious, but from sleep it does. So MVPA seems to have the strongest beneficial impact on physical performance, which goes together with some previous reports from actually latest papers in 2021-22 that say that beneficial role of MVPA on muscle mass, strength, gait speed, bone density among older adults specifically. Frailty status, MVPA showed positive association as well on cortical thickness and total bone mineral density, and strongest overall effect of MVPA on bone mass among older adults. So it would be really a nice add-on if we would have on the same subject subsample some biological material available, and or at least on the Slovakia side the same data as we have here, so we could cross-match them. And I think we missed a very important opportunity that we should fight for in the future to look into it. Future studies with longitudinal or experimental design are warranted all along the literature on the field. So that's what's missing. We have studies on differences, on validations, on correlations, and regression analysis, but the studies that would look into the effect of different types of interventions or longitudinal, what would be needed in case of mortality profile. So putting together some system of tracking those which we maybe screen for every 3 years, 1 year, whatever, and we know when they become on daily basis, let's say, movement dysfunctional, or when they die, that would be very, very, very valuable. This is also the reason why at the same time we use the standard way of validated translation with the help of friends from Austria, including Stefan Löffler and Spela and others, to really validately translate it forward, backward translation, and focus groups for synchronizing the translation, pilot testing, and so on, with the ambition to integrate DAPQ questionnaire, which was one of the first developed by Kaja Kastelitz and myself, where we are asking in a way that the compositional questions should be asked. So you're not asking about minutes that can sum up to 30 hours, but you are questioning the questions always the way that their sum up ends at 24 hours. So there was a huge call of literature for such questionnaires as well, because if you are not objectively capturing the data, you can fail in that. Based on the same database, we have some additional 2 or 3 papers in progress. One additional has been submitted besides the already published validation translation. And yeah, we would be very happy to look at the opportunities of embedding the DAPQ questionnaire into clinical environments, as we discussed a while ago, actually. I would like to acknowledge the financial support of the financing bodies and all the involved institutions. And I would like to thank to the CAA Austrian group being a part of it. So thank you for your attention.
So you said 150 minutes per week of moderate to more intense physical exercise, that should be enough. So my question is the same thing if I do 20 minutes per day, 7 days, or if I do the 2.5 hours in 3 days, or in 1 day? And then second question would be, can I do 2.5 hours of biking is the same as 2.5 hours of running? You know, this is the question that we should ask from now on.
I completely agree, and the field of epidemiology of movement of physical activity does not have any answers to that yet. If I combine the expertise and the data from, historically speaking, the first directions were only sport activities matter, so only high organized. And 20 years later, they say, okay, it's also important how your job looks like and what do you do, the household activities. And about 5 years ago and 3 years ago, with Canadian guidelines being the first, the logic is every minute counts and every activity counts. But if I go back to your first question, I would say if we combine all the expertise and knowledge from presentations these days, it's pretty obvious that it makes more sense to have on-off, and especially when we talk about vigorous physical activity, because we need time to regenerate, to recover, and so on. But on the other hand, too much sedentary behavior without at least a moderate or light physical activity during the average, let's say, sport non-active day would also not be good, it seems, from the data we have at the moment. But all the algorithms and sensors and applications try to develop in a way that we would know more about what type of physical activity, upper body, lower body, cycling, running, how does this potentially affect, and how would this information be maybe useful to give guidelines in the future. But many of those questions have not yet been replied.
What kind of markers or physiological markers at the beginning, and then hopefully some molecular markers you think that can be provided, to discriminate among the different kind of exercise or sedentary behavior? So in other words, is there any physiological parameters that can be used to discriminate the different behaviors or not?
These are more the questions that I would like to ask you guys, because it hasn't been addressed in the context of 24-hour movement behavior till now, and I have no idea. I mean, I would say that probably the balance between stress and recovery and maybe some inflammation markers, but I'm speaking as a pretty naive person in the field, so that's where we need to join forces and think about it. Yeah, sorry. Ugo?
Okay, no, there's a question from the audience. Okay.
So thank you for the talk. Did you ever thought about correlating this with risk of fall or some assessments of proprioception? Because especially in the elderly population, that would bring a value for the quality of life and besides the health costs.
Very good question. It was not really the center of the talk, but I can tell you that the similar correlates and predictive values of movement profile for falls and fall prediction have already been addressed and proved. That's true. Proprioception is more tricky. I mean,
Yeah, it's very
proprioception is
tricky.
a very broad term. Actually, nobody knows how to define it today really perfectly. If you know the physiotherapy environment, you know that at some time point everyone was talking about proprioceptive training when it was actually a balanced training integrating, among others, proprioception. So I'm not aware of any specific papers that would go into kinesthetic senses and
Not
force
why, so-
senses and
Okay, yeah.
and so on. But I think if we go this way, focusing more on balance, fall prevention, and kinesthetics, it would be nice to join all of them together
But
to.
nobody really, but we can discuss this later.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows if the balance training is really
beneficial for
beneficial
kinesthetic
for,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I
if
mean, there are
strength
contradictory
training or
results.
in general activity would be efficient enough.
Mm.
Nobody knows what really the
Yeah. I think,
right training is.
in my opinion, it's a problem of sensitivity of all the kinesthetic and joint position and force repositioning senses that is pretty low. I mean, we have very low distribution and the reliability is very low. So maybe we have a methodological problem of measuring it the right way.
Okay. So, okay. Do you want to make?
I have just a comment because the question I will discuss privately, because could be patented at the end. It is better not to talk too much about this. First of all, I congratulate with all the speaker 1, 2, and 3, and I think that 4th and 5th and 6th will be equally important, very good. In my opinion, this will be, I'm sorry, the second best session of the meeting of this year, because up to now, the yesterday morning early speaker session were really up, very up. And therefore, I ask, please, the speaker or the speaker to stand in front of a title of the session at the end, before we move. I congratulate Jan and
Nejc.
no Jan, Nejc or Nejc?
Nejc.
Nejc. And once again, Helmut, you are lucky.
No, I'm lucky. I'm expert for
wait,
selection.
Wait. Because the data of Nejc demonstrate that there are no background disturbing factors in the behaviors, movement behaviors. The only critical changes is the 20 minutes of strong exercise. This do not mean that long-term, low-level difference between male and female may not have, at the end, significance.